Hey, it's been a while.
Hey, it's CJ.
That's me, CJ the Lego guy. Before we start the video, here's some timestamps down in the comment section down below and in the description. Hey everyone, CJ here. Hope you all doing well, and we're back with another review video. And oh boy, oh boy, the Bad Batch has finally concluded earlier this week, and here we are, dealing with the loss of the Bad Batch and no more adventures with them and our sweet, sweet characters. But yes, there's a lot to unpack with this finale, so let's jump right into the Bad Batch Season 3 season finale and series finale too. Before talking about the actual episode, I just wanted to mention that the little preview for Bad Batch on Disney Plus was very frightening, seeing as though it was just emotionally distraught Omega at night in the rain. It made me think of all possibilities before I actually tuned in. I was like, no way is all the bad stuff about to happen to the Bad Batch even. But thankfully not. Spoilers. It wasn't until the actual episode guide that, I kind of forgot to mention Nala Se in the season 3 recap video. My bad. But pretty much I just figured that Nala Se would be released with all the other clones and stuff, and that would practically be the end of her story anyway. But yes, just wanted to talk about how the title has so much significance. That Cavalry has arrived is pretty much the first line that we hear from the Bad Batch and their selling point back in the final season of the Clone Wars when we first saw the Bad Batch in fully animated action. And oh man, remembering the times of before the Bad Batch was a thing and now we're here when their stories come to a conclusion. Such great stuff. But yes, you want to know what my overall thought was before we actually start with the review? Magnificent! 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 But yeah, in all seriousness, I really did like the finale, and we'll continue to talk about it as we get through the episode. But let me know what you thought of the finale down in the comment section down below. When the episode starts to open up with the opening credits, oh man, all the suspense coming from the great eerie music and the cool little detail that in the opening helmets and Star Wars title that the colors slowly were removed to go in a sort of parallel connection to how the Batch got rid of all their coloring from their armor too. And especially when the Star Wars logo comes out and Bad Batch label slowly appears. Ooh, the suspense. I was having my mind run 1,000 miles just then and there. It was just so incredible and like so significant. Just setting up the whole sense of, yeah, this is the finale and this is going to be the biggest episode in, or at least the biggest event in their lives thus so far. This is it. This is the end. Oh, it was so good. I really like that detail. And thus, when we get to the episode, just to make the finale even more dramatic, we settle this and end this story at nightfall. With a constant reminder that Wrecker is not only beaten down from the Tiger encounter from the previous episode, but also that he's very much injured. And they keep teasing this a lot they keep reminding us about that throughout the episode, but it really made it seem like they were trying to tease that Wrecker was going to die at the end of the episode. Spoilers, thankfully not. But I just wanted to point that out since the episode made it very clear Wrecker is very much hurt throughout the whole episode and will be even more hurt as we continue on. When Rampart and Dr. Hemlock talk to each other and their banter was actually pretty good on their whole worth to the Empire. I found it very interesting that this little detail kind of teased how the rest of Rampart's story was going to go into this episode, seeing as though all he wants to do is get back into power, and he soon realizes that the only way to do so is to figure out what Dr. Hemlock's secret project is, so then that way he can bring value to himself again to the Empire. I thought that was pretty cool, in the sense of giving the villains one last little discussion before, the gown. I love the exchange of dialogue between Dr. Emerie. I know her name's Dr. Carr, but I'll still call her Dr. Emerie and Echo while he's still trying to find the data on Omega and the other children. I find it very well written that Dr. Emerie wants to clearly change her character and do the right thing for Omega's sake. It's also really good that Echo can recognize that too and is willing to have her help him out in order to get all the other clone members out from detainment. When we cut back to Omega and the children, it was really cool that the first step of the plan is to take over the robot that takes their blood and stuff. I thought it was really smart of Omega to show her prowess in dealing with robots and their tech, as I'm sure that tech and I was about to say Omega taught Omega, and Echo taught her a few things on how to deal with that stuff. It was pretty cool to just see the kids collaborate with each other as they try to make their way to enact their escape plan. I also found it kind of funny that a part of the plan was to use the robot to knock out Dr. Scalder. I thought it was pretty fun, little nifty Star Wars humor that you would see in Rebels and Clone Wars. That brief moments of levity is something that this episode very much needed and definitely had as well, which is a really good thing, I feel like. But back to the Dr. Scalder. Although this isn't the last time that we see her in the story, this is definitely the last quote unquote important part of her story for the Bad Batch storyline. So naturally, this being her removal from the story is alright to me. Because at least, hey, she didn't die, right? I don't think so. I forgot about this little part that I really liked that came before they knocked out Dr. Scalder, but I really like it how Omega explains to the kids that she's been trained for this, showing how much she's grown as a character and how much the Bad Batch has taught her in so many ways. Since naturally, she's no longer that sweet innocent child from episode 1 of Bad Batch. She's now a full-hardened character of her own. And although she prefers to be in a group setting, she can definitely prove that she can handle situations on her own and protect herself too. And she just wants to give a piece of that confidence to the children, which is a pretty great little character moment between them all, as we see the kids throughout the whole episode. Thought that was really nice. Naturally, at some point, the kids manage to get to the room with the Xylo Beast, and Omega releases it, which starts the second phase of the escape plan to let the rampage of the Xylo Beast gives enough of a distraction for the kids to make a break for it. And oh man, just that whole scene was just so funny. Just a classic, like little kaiju, like breaking loose and terrorizing the TK troopers. Super funny stuff and pretty light kind of juxtaposition compared to all the more serious parts of the episode that we're definitely going to talk about once we get there. But yeah, pretty cool that the Xylo Beast was there, but although it was just there as the plot device of escape, it's still pretty cool. It makes sense within the grand scheme of things, I think. Once Dr. Emerie and Echo manage to catch up at the vault after Dr. Hemlock leaves and they realize that the kids have already made their escape plan, I love this line in which Echo realizes what Omega's been doing, and he says the line, "Because it's exactly what I'd do." Not only do I find it like a cute little line to show the relation between Echo and Omega and how they bonded over tactics and other things like that, but it was just a great little character moment for Echo, and another scene in which a Bad Batch member acknowledges the immense growth that Omega has gone through and the lengths that she'll go to complete the mission as any one of them would. I thought that was pretty great, and it was a great surprise to Dr. Emery too. And we cut back to Crosshair, Wrecker, and Hunter trying to make their way into the base. Oh boy, it was so heartbreaking and saddening to see Crosshair's reaction to getting close to Mount Tantus, as we've been seeing that his hand has been shaking whenever he thinks about the Empire. But when he gets to this point and his aggressive shaking and anxiety bringing up and his frustration with that, oh, that was such an incredibly harsh detail to see that Crosshair is at the place that he'd want to go last, since this is the source of all of his PTSD, at least his most recent issues that has caused so many problems to his physical and mental health. But it was just such a devastating thing to see Crosshair go through. When Crosshair says the line, "Clone Force 99 died with Tech," oh, the emotions in that part of the scene. But yes, I just wanted to highlight that when Crosshair speaks about Tech's death, it connects back to his mentality on how he believes that this mission, this will be the end of not only the batch, but also this will be a mission of no return specifically for him, for he feels like his life will end here and that his only purpose left is to save Omega, and that's it. He doesn't care whether or not he lives or dies or whatever he's about to go through, as long as he accomplishes the mission to retrieve Omega. That's his mentality, and especially clear when he insists that Wrecker and Hunter leave and that they let him go in alone, which the response to that is pretty incredible too. The emotional depth behind Crosshair's words is so moving since he ends his little speech with, "It's what I deserve," implying that, yes, he's only here to give his life in order to complete the mission, which, in a sense, is Crosshair opening up about his mental state to his brothers. Which is just so crazy how he seems to definitely believe that the only way he can find redemption and purpose in himself is to give his life in order to make amends for his sins. When Hunter responds to Crosshair, he reinstates Crosshair's worth to the batch, but not only that, but he also reassures Crosshair that there's always another way to do what's right, and especially to do the right thing. Wrecker adds his piece on how Tech always knew that no matter what happens, as long as the batch are together, they'll always have each other's back, which both of their words resonates to Crosshair's heart, which is such an incredible piece of dialogue between the three of them, and especially since they give him words that he definitely needed to hear. And I felt like this is the last thing that gives Crosshair his complete confidence boost, that he should have faith not only in himself, but he also has the faith of his brothers too, which is essential to Crosshair's character, that now he feels finally in full faith to himself. One of the brief moments of levity, which was pretty funny, was when, as soon as they notice that the Xylo Beast breaks out of the base, Crosshair says Echo's handiwork or Omega's, and then Wrecker and Hunter immediately say Omega. I thought it was a funny little thing of them being like, yep, she probably definitely did that. But it's another case of them recognizing her growth and how far she's come since the beginning of this whole tale. And I thought that was pretty great character stuff with these three, now that everyone's had their moment of acknowledging how Omega's got a piece of her tactics from everyone. It blends it all together in her own style. That's a pretty great thing with all these characters together. Omega comforting Jax about his fear of heights, and how Omega continues to talk to him and the other children about the batch, was a pretty great way for Omega to give the children a sense of confidence and to gain that said confidence in themselves too. And I thought that was a pretty great little character moment amongst the four of them while they're trying to make their escape. Pretty great little character stuff with the children. When Dr. Hemlock has no other choice than to release his secret backup plan, he enters a new secret room that we haven't seen before, I don't think. And oh boy, this secret room was super cool when he reveals he's got an entire squad of clone assassins with each their own armor set and stuff. And this was such a crazy reveal because I was like, wait a minute, is this Project Necromancer making highly advanced clone assassins? Is that what the whole project was about? And then trying to make a whole army of deadly clones with force potential? That was crazy if that's what it was, and it was never a Snoke project, but seeing these four together, it was like, oh, yo, we're about to get in some boss fights. Before the batch members can continue further into the base, they get stopped by not only all the clones, all the TK troopers, but also these clone assassins, which I dubbed the anti-batch. Because look at them. They're literally a squad of quote-unquote defective clones, or like altered clones that are like their own little personalities, and they've got like cool weapons. Of course, we see the return of CX, and then we see the other clone assassins, which I'm dubbing Saber, Lancer, and Bruiser. And oh boy, these guys just straight up define themselves as the main and final boss antagonists of the group. And they completely washed Crosshair, Hunter, and Wrecker. They got completely wrecked. And so, yeah, to reiterate, after they get jumped, Wrecker is being held down by an electricity pole from Lancer. Hunter got knocked out from an explosion. And then Crosshair, when he gets held down by both Saber and CX, oh boy, when he says you should be more careful with your shooting hand, and as he holds his sword up, I instantly froze. I was like, yo, they did not do that. They cut off Crosshair's hand? Dang, what a cruel scene. What an aggressive way to say, yeah, you're out, Crosshair. You're done. What an insanely crazy moment. What were your reactions? Let me know in the comments, please. As Echo and Dr. Carr, oh, see, now I said it right. As Echo and Dr. Emery make their way through the facility, and they happen to stop at the perfect timing when the anti-batch are wheeling the regular batch members to the little secret room where they came from. Oh, Echo's silence is just so heartbreaking where it's like, dang, they got really, really messed up from this past encounter. And although he knows, and Emery too knows that Echo wants to save them right away, he knows that the first thing that they have to do is get the kids out. And it was just that sense of like apathy that Dr. Emery has for Echo, since she knows that that's his brothers. He understands that there's something that they need to do first. When the children finally make it out of the facility and Echo and Dr. Emery find them, I thought it was very wholesome that the way that the kids reacted to knowing that Dr. Emery was helping them out the whole time, in a sense. Especially how Ava reacted. I thought it was pretty cute, in a sense of they had no means of finding faith or trusting anyone who was an Imperial employee, but knowing that Dr. Emery, who has been very close with them since the beginning of her working there, they find a sense of hope that they had help from the person that they thought was nice to them. I thought that was very sweet. When Omega is told that the batch is being held, her and Echo are about to head on out. But before Dr. Emery takes the children into the shuttle, they hug Omega, which was sweet and wholesome. And it was a pretty great little detail on how the children are thanking Omega for giving them self-confidence and everything that they've just went through. And I thought that was very great little character details amongst the children, that she gave them hope and confidence. When we catch up with Wrecker, Crosshair, and Hunter in the torture chamber. Oh, gosh. Yep, that pretty much confirmed that, yes, indeed, Crosshair did lose his hand to Saber and CX, which, when I first saw the scene, I thought it was just his fingers, but nope, it was his whole right hand. We'll talk a little bit more about the significance, or at least the reaching significance that I saw within Crosshair losing his hand later, but this scene was just so crazy, just seeing Wrecker knocked out, Crosshair being fixed up, and Hunter's the one being mind zapped, which thankfully it wasn't a mind flare, but still, Dr. Hemlock being insistent that he can break the batch and turn them in his most prized operatives is just crazy. And Hunter showing his resilience to break through the torturing. Oh, this scene was just so tense. Once Omega and Tech, oh no, I said Tech, and Echo managed to find the other clones and free them all, including Nalase and Rampart. Echo's speech was pretty solid, and I feel like he learned that from Rex. But yes, essentially Echo manages to motivate and rally call all the clones to get them to gain their fighting spirit once again, in order for them all to take on the anti-batch and free the remaining clone brothers, which is essentially the other batch members. I thought that this scene was pretty great, and I'm so glad that we managed to get one last little clone speech before the series ended, and we don't see these characters again. When Nalase and Omega reunite briefly, it was very nice for Nalase to have a little moment with Omega before she departs on her personal mission to get rid of all of the research banks in this facility. They both acknowledge that this is her last act to get back at the Empire, and there's a subtlety to them acknowledging that this might be the last time that they see each other, specifically because of what Nalase is about to do. And although I would have wished for them to say one or two lines more about their relation to each other, I feel like because of all the other things that we need to get to, I feel like this brief little exchange of dialogue was all right. And I feel like the action of Omega giving Dr. Emery's tablet to Nalase is that little character moment that I'm looking for, where they're both acknowledging, like, we've been through so much together that this is our final thing, the final thing that we work on together. I thought in that sense it worked out pretty well. Naturally, Hemlock talks with Tarkin about what's going on and that he's got everything handled and that the Emperor doesn't need to worry about one of his most prized projects being in jeopardy and all that stuff, and that Dr. Hemlock ensures that the Death Star plans, oh wait, my bad, I'm talking about a different plan, because this conversation definitely felt like it was the same type of vibe when Tarkin was talking with Krennic about the Death Star. I was like, oh geez. When I saw this scene, I'm like, uh-oh, is Tarkin gonna show up and blow up Mount Tantus as I predicted in the previous video? I mean, thankfully that doesn't happen, but we'll talk about that later. But I just thought that this little character moment was interesting in the sense of Dr. Hemlock desperately trying to admit that, or at least he makes it clear that he thinks he knows everything's in control, but as he'll later find out, he's definitely wrong about that. Once Echo and the Clone Force manage to make it to the secret vault in order to save the other batch members, Omega goes through the sneaking route to try to get into the main room to get them out. But oh boy, once the anti-batch comes out and fully use this supposed training room to their advantage, oh boy, it's an all-out shootout as the clone force takes on the anti-batch. And unfortunately, they get wrecked as well. Before Omega can fully get Wrecker out of his locks, she gets caught by Lancer and gets captured by Hemlock. And before they can do anything else, Hemlock opens up the spray mechanism in the main training room. So not only do the clone force have to deal with the anti-batch, but also this poison gas that's coming out too. When we catch up with Nala Se, she manages to get to the vault and starts to get rid of all the data, but as it was teased in the prior scene, Rampart did indeed follow her here with a blaster, and the whole thing of Rampart just trying to be relevant again by using the truth that he finds out here about what Project Necromancer is and use it as a bargaining chip in order to secure his old high-ranking job in the Empire again. It just makes sense for his character, but it's just funny. I was like, really, dude? You could have been free, but nah, you just had to go back to the system that treated you poorly. They literally threw you out the first chance they got. Don't you remember season 2 Rampart? But yeah, he and Nala Se have a talk. Nala Se stands her ground and says my work will never belong to you or the Empire. It was pretty great that she just wants to clear out anything and everything and keep everything Kaminoan for Kaminoans. But then yeah, naturally once Rampart gets all the data that he needs, he shoots Nala Se. And surprise, surprise to him, he didn't know that she also grabbed a thermal detonator as well. So yep, Nala Se takes out the research and Rampart as a true G. And it was just funny, Rampart's reaction like, wait, what? No! Boom. And then explosion. What a crazy way to see the end of Nala Se in that sense. But it was by her own terms, which is a good thing in that sense, that she determined how she wanted to go out. But I had a feeling that Rampart was going to go out in some way, but I never knew it would be this explosive. Last thing I had to say about Rampart is see ya. When we cut back to the Clone Force, unfortunately, majority, if not all of the clones are being washed by the anti-batch, and Echo, being the true ARC trooper that he was, is holding his ground against them all, and especially against Saber. And it almost seemed like his robotic arm got a little messed up during the fight, but man, Echo was going all out in order to survive this fight against these deadly foes. This next part was such a story trope when you have your villain say, I've got you and you have no means of defeating me. What else can you do? And the hero's like, I don't need to do anything because I have the power of friendship. My friends are my power. And then they get jumped by the heroes. Although it is such a cheesy thing, it is a pretty great little character moment and story plot detail when it's done right. Which I felt like it was okay here too. But it was just funny how Dr. Hemlock was like, what do you have? And blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do? And Omega's like, I have them. And what great perfect timing, too, that Wrecker managed to wake up and enter the fray as well. I thought that was a pretty fun little thing. I don't have friends. I have family. And I have a Wrecker. My mind also said, I'm all of the Empire science. And I'm all of the clones. Got him. While the situation starts getting out of hand, Dr. Hemlock makes a squirrely, weaselly run out of there and takes CX's equipment to possibly take his ship and Omega, who's now cuffed to him, somewhere else so he can escape this situation. I thought that was pretty funny and a great little sense of, yep, this is it. We're now reaching the end and Dr. Hemlock is going to do the character trope of a hostage little standoff at the end. Before Wrecker joins the fray, he tells Crosshair and Hunter to go after Omega and Dr. Hemlock. And when Wrecker joins the fray, he definitely swings the tide of the battle since it made clear, or at least it's implied, that Echo is the only one here, which naturally we find out that there's at least one or a few more clones left. But geez, yeah, once Wrecker completely wrecks shop and takes on the anti-batch, he manages to take out Bruiser and save Echo, who, in turn, Echo manages to save Wrecker and take out Lancer, which, both situations came really close and came in clutch. And yep, sure enough, once CX manages to get his hands on Hunter and Crosshair, they swiftly take him out. And oh man, This was such an epic shot of how he threw Lancer's lance at CX and he exploded on a little tank thing. But yep, that pretty much confirmed that Tech is indeed, sadly, gone for realsies, and he was not brought back. Tech! We're now no longer in denial, Tech Nation. Now we've just re-entered the sadness again. But yo, the coolest takedown was Saber. The way that Record just immediately wrecks him and does an Arkham Enviro takedown on him. That was so cool. Oh man, these takedowns were pretty crazy, don't you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. I also like how now in these finales for Star Wars shows, it's like, quick, we gotta push out the new toy. Which, hey, new cool character to be taken out in a cool way, I guess. And then lastly, the last anti-batch member is Blaster, which I completely forgot about Blaster in the opening shot when they were first shown. But yeah, this is who I dubbed Blaster, and he gets blasted by one of the surviving clones, who I feel like needs a name too, but I'll let that for you guys to decide who that survivor clone should be named. And thus comes an end to the anti-batch. Once Dr. Hemlock calls in the clone assassin ship, Crosshair and Hunter swiftly take it out to leave Hemlock and Scorch stranded here for one final confrontation. And yep, this is definitely the final cutscene before a cutscene takedown for the villain in a video game. I forgot which one though, but it was essentially like where you have, instead of a final boss, you have like a wave of enemies and then you take on the villain in a cutscene or a quick time event. But yeah, that's what this pretty much feels like. Especially since the person who you think would be the sub boss or penultimate boss immediately gets taken out so quickly, and yep, that's the end of Scorch, your Delta Squad member. Which I've seen the discourse online, and I could understand why this is the part where a lot of people don't like, since it rubbed them the wrong way that Scorch, such a hyped up character, gets taken out really quickly, and it makes it feel like the pacing just escalates from here. But I feel like this was an appropriate sense where Scorch kind of felt off with the whole situation too, and since this is technically their second time facing each other, naturally Crosshair and Hunter would take him out. But I have seen some people say that he might have survived, since he may or may not be showing up at the end, but who knows. But yeah, that practically states that, yep, we're now in the final part of these confrontations. Dr. Hemlock, out of desperation, manages to take Omega as a hostage by, well, not only by still being cuffed to her, but also pointing the gun at her too. Which then prompts such a crazy, cool little thing between Omega, Crosshair, and Hunter, which is also a trope as well, where the hostage will tip off the other heroes to take him out. But it was still pretty cool how it was executed here. Oh, the way that Hunter and Crosshair are so ready to take out Dr. Hemlock. You could just feel the tension, just feel the eagerness of like, yes, do it. Do it. And the way that they're already prepared to just like shoot him at specific points, since it almost seemed like they were aiming at different things. But yeah, another cool thing about it was Hunter propping up Crosshair for his shot, since they both are practically in unison with each other when it comes to this one last tactic to take out Dr. Hemlock. And I thought that was a pretty cool little bonding thing for the two of them, in a sense. And surely enough, Omega tips off her bros to strike on her signal, since she grabs the pen that she's always had with her since before the breakout and stabs Hemlock to give her the chance to gain distance so that Crosshair has a clear shot at the handcuffs. Crosshair's last moments of his security shows up here, but it was really great to see Hunter finally extinguish that flame of disbelief that Crosshair has in himself, seeing as though Crosshair knows that Omega and Hunter trust him with everything here in this moment to help save Omega, and I thought it was incredible. It's understandable why Crosshair was hesitant, but just this final push for confidence in himself, I thought it was really great. And seeing as though Omega and Hunter had the strong belief that he was going to pull through anyway, it was just so great to just see them reinforce that Crosshair's got this. And thus, Omega makes her move, and they not only shoot the cuffs, but Hunter and Crosshair also. Sorry that I laugh at this. They empty their clips on Dr. Hemlock. I'm like, good riddance. I'm like, yeah, forget you, Dr. Hemlock. But was I the only one that found it funny that, like, they don't just shoot him once, but they're both like, no, we're taking turns on taking him out. And even Dr. Hemlock's like, wait, it's my turn. It's my turn to shoot. Wait, now. Ah. It was like, oh my God. It was like, sometimes there's just some villains where you're just like, yeah, good riddance. And you just their death scene is just so hype because of how terrible of a person they are and how great of a villain that makes them. But geez, I just thought that this part was just so funny. And he's out of there. Once Omega reunites with Hunter and Crosshair, she sees his hand and them and then breaks down and hugs. First Crosshair and then all three of them hug. But this moment was just so significant of her hugging Crosshair because it's that final like bow that wraps up everything between the relations with them and her acknowledgement that Crosshair is finally free of the pain and all the suffering that he's gone through. And even he's realized that too, which is also reinstated by the rain, seeing as though it's just pouring out all of the negativity out of them. And I thought that, in a sense, I don't know if this is too much of a reach, but although it is a terrible thing that Crosshair got his hand cut off during the conflict, his hand being the representation of all of his pain and tragedy and sorrow that was inflicted upon him because of what Hemlock did to him and the Empire, him losing the arm, in a sense, was also him losing all that negativity that he was holding on to. So now with all of that said and done, with all these factors, his hand, the trauma, Dr. Hemlock's death, getting Omega back, being back with the Batch, Hunter there, and just Crosshair doing the right thing and finding redemption without the loss of his life. Everything's just pouring down out of him and all the negativity out. I thought that this was the final piece that Crosshair needed to be at peace with himself. And I thought that was so incredible of a detail for his character. And I just love that too. And thus, once everyone is finally reunited in the shuttle, they take off and leave the planet, which I felt like was a big piece of symbolism, seeing as though all these characters are finally making it out and leaving behind this symbolic object of all of their darkest and negative experiences and finally letting go of all of that. Finally moving on from the darkest chapter in their lives and finally escaping all that and being free from everything that held them in the dark, and now they're back to the light. And I thought that was an incredible little piece of story too. But of course, the obvious being they had to leave that place anyway since they're trying to escape and go to Pabu. But just that sense of what the characters have gone through and now that they're free from it, I thought that was incredible. Naturally, once Tarkin shows up and he talks about how it was such a waste, this whole Project Necromancer thing, and at least that everything couldn't have fallen into enemy hands or out of line. And then he just basically moves his priorities to the Death Star, which is very much him. But I just thought it was funny. Tarkin showed up there. He's like, man, I wanted to destroy Mount Tantus myself. I just thought that was funny. Once we catch up with everyone back at Pabu, we see that most of the clones are taking refuge and eating some nice sushi and intermingling with all the other Pabu residents. And so naturally, all the children start hanging out together too, which I thought it was very sweet as well, that kids can be kids now that they're free from all this crazy shenanigans of the Star Wars world. And hey, maybe they'll get some nice dripped out Pabu clothes as well. Also, sorry in advance if the audio sounds a little off. I had to move rooms and deal with some technical issues. But back onto the review, Dr. Emerie and Echo reflect on how now that everyone has earned their freedom, now they can become their own person and do whatever it is that they want to do now with their own lives, free and not connected to anything that came before. Which I thought it was a very good and sweet moment between the two of them, and Dr. Emery agrees to join Echo and the other clones to go help out Rex and the others to get every other clone the same freedom. And even though it's the series finale and we won't be seeing these characters again, I guess you could still have a new ship come about at the end of a series, right? Come on. Am I the only one that ships Dr. Emery and Echo? Doesn't sound too far-fetched since, if you all know me, I do be silly sometimes. Most of the time. Hashtag Emery Echo. I think Fives would be proud. And thus, with that, Emery and Echo head on out to go meet up with Rex while everyone else sits on the center tree of town. Hunter's final speech on freedom is so excellent and so well done. I thought it was very great. His conversation with Omega, everything about that was just so incredible. The way that all the clones now have the freedom to choose who they want to be and what they want to do. It's just so incredible, especially for these characters who they've only been bred just for war, but remove the war from them, they can finally be free and experience this freedom they never thought that they would ever have if it didn't include their own death in battle. And it's just so incredible to just see these characters just finally have a peaceful moment of relief and relaxation. This story has just been so incredible, and just to see these characters finally catch a break and just live in the freedom to do whatever they want with their lives is just so incredible. And it was so cool to feel like this was where the credits was going to pop up. And then we get a surprise and very much welcomed ending to the whole story, since what we see from here on out is the definitive ending to the Bad Batch story. We get a clear time skip as we jump into the night where an older Omega is joining the Rebel fleet as a pilot, which is super incredible. And it's too bad that we only have this one scene of older Omega, because I love her new character design. It's so cool. It's so her, with the jacket and the boots and of course her new hairstyle. And I didn't notice this until I was grabbing my pictures for this video, but she has a patch of the Bad Batch. Oh, so wholesome and sweet and cool. And of course, naturally, we see that there's a new ship that she takes, which I'd like to dub the Marauder 2. Or, I was about to say, what if she called it something about tech or the Bad Batch, but I think it would be called the Marauder 2. And I bet that she would be doing a whole bunch of tech turns as well. But yes, older Omega's outfit is so cool. Before she could leave, I love the trope of when the child is now an adult and is trying to sneak out, but then the parent is there waiting in the dark until they turn on the lights. I thought it was very sweet that not only do we see Batcher, but we also see Hunter one last time, and now he's an older man, and it still looks so cool with his new older design. But yes, this whole talk that they have about Hunter being, or before we get to the part that I want to talk about, they talk about how the rebellion needs pilots, and naturally Omega wants to join, and Hunter is very resistant on that at first. But I love this whole undertones of the natural reaction that a dad would have when dealing with the emotions of having to let their child go and be their own person. I thought it was very sweet, because naturally one would be protective over their family members, but they are also knowing that this is essential to let them go, to do their own things. The part when Omega is talking about how she's ready to go and Hunter says that he's not, there's just so much beauty in that detail during their talk. And I thought it was very great moments between them as they continue to talk about Omega's decision to leave. And we know these two characters and everything that they've been through, so naturally we understand both sides, but there's just such a unexplainable beauty within all of this. And especially their connection, that even though biologically they're technically siblings, but the way that they've raised each other in a parental and childlike role, it's just so incredible and so beautiful as well. It continues on as Omega does the other trope of finally heading on out into the car, or at least in this case, a ship or the train. And once she gets aboard, she comes down just to have one last glance at her father, as Hunter is fully ready and accepting to let her go, seeing as though he knows this is what she wants and he just wants what's best for her and for her to be her own person too. since this is the culmination of everything that they fought for her to have the choice to do what she wants to do with the rest of her life. That and a final reassurance from Hunter that no matter what happens, that she'll always have their back no matter what, and they'll always be there for her too. Such beautiful moments between them. So great. As you can tell, I love this kind of stuff, but let me know how you guys felt about it down in the comments below, since I want to hear your thoughts on this final speech as well. Not only do we see the inside of the ship and that Omega still kept her Leiku from Wrecker, but she still has Tech's goggles. Oh, my heart. And I'm sure that she still has a something as a reminder to her other brothers, her other dads. But it's just there's so much emotion swelling within this scene as the music starts to kick in and everything starts to be coming closer to the end. It's just so amazing and beautiful. And the last thing that Hunter says to Batcher and his little smile there at the end, it's just the final piece to this full character arc, story arc, and just this beautiful speech and messaging as well. Such incredible stuff, and I love this moment since it clearly shows through his expression that he's finally accepted the state that they're in, that they're all finally free, and that they've all accomplished the mission. Omega is free and happy. And as long as there's that, he can be happy too. And so Omega flies off in the Marauder 2. We see one last beautiful panoramic shot of Pabu and the night sky. And as we see her ship flying upwards with the music swelling at its highest, Star Wars The Bad Batch's story comes to an end for one last time. And yeah, that's The Bad Batch. It's all over now. My closing thoughts, I'm going to try to say as briefly as possible. The whole messaging behind this last few scenes is not being sad that something's over. It's more like learning to let go of all the bad stuff that came with it and accepting that things happen, and because of that, we should still be happy to be a part of it, that it was still a part of our lives. To let go of it and move on. Not to forget about it, but to let us be willing to continue forward with the strength and memories that we got from said prior experience. And I like that sense that Bad Batch is a sense of how life is just a road of so many things against you, but once you keep doing what you feel is right for yourself and for the people you consider as your family. I forgot who said it in this show, but someone said that family is chosen. That no matter what you decide to do, and if you have the freedom to continue forward, that everything's going to be good and well in the end. I'm not that great at speaking about this stuff, nor being articulate with my thoughts, but I just thought that that's what Bad Batch meant by the end of it, to me at least. But definitely, we'll be missing these characters and this show, but it was just so incredibly cool just that we had this. Because I'm sure that had the last season of Clone Wars remained canceled, we never would have had this Bad Batch story, nor all these characters to love. And we'll be grateful for that, and we'll keep them in our hearts. Plus, after this, it would be cool to see, I don't think that they would make an animated series post Bad Batch. It'd be cool to see like a small anthology series, like a short series of 6 episodes maybe for Omega's adventures, or at least a comic book run of a few issues too. Since that whole little story segment is pretty exciting too. But naturally, as much as we want to see more, this is a fitting and final conclusion to the Bad Batch story. And if we don't see these characters anymore, then that's okay too, because we still got to see their great story. And that's all that's left of the Bad Batch. And with that, this video comes to a close. What did you all think about the Bad Batch? What are some of your fondest memories, or some of the things that you felt like the finale fumbled, it could have done better, the things that you liked from it, and the things that you would want to have seen from the finale, and possibly in fan fiction as to what happens next for our characters? And what did you think about my video too? Drop all your comments, concerns, and thoughts down in the comment section down below, for I'd love to hear from all of you. And speaking of, if you enjoyed the video, why not drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel for you're new, and checking out some of my other content here too, for your help is very much appreciated, and you're awesome. Can't wait to continue working on all the other stuff that I have planned to show you soon, which I hope you enjoy as well. And we should definitely talk about Tales of the Empire 2, which is coming out later in the week. And before I miss out on the chance to say it, may the 4th be with you all, my good friends out there in the Star Wars fandom. But for now, I hope that you all continue to have a great day, and I'll catch you next time, especially for the next Star Wars related video. But I'm CJ, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye for now.